Please don't boil me alive, Millie said. She had to figure out a way to escape. Suddenly, desperately, she wanted to live. Not boiling? Well, understandable. By all accounts, if it is a nasty way to go. People who observed boilings during Henry VIII's time said it was so sickening they had preferred to be beheaded. Oh, there's a good one we haven't talked about yet. Decapitation. He said it like it was such a happy word. There are many ways to chop off a head. Of course, if the blade is sharp enough, it's fairly quick and painless. That being said, if the blade isn't sharp enough, well, poor Mary Queen of Scots had to get 3 hacks with the headman's dull old axe before her noggin was liberated from her body. The guilty was quick and clean, though, and didn't require any particular skill in the part of the executioner, which made it easy to get rid of all those rich snots during the French Revolution. They just lined them up and ran them through the guillotine like an assembly line, or rather, a disassembly line. The voice paused again to chuckle. Whoever it was, it seemed to have a very good time at Millie's expense. Saudi Arabia, where your parents are, am I right? Still uses beheading as their preferred form of capital punishment. They use a sword, which I find rather stylish and dramatic. Saudi Arabia, Millie thought. Her parents were so far away, so unable to help her, and now she was facing down death. She strangely felt more love for them than she had ever had. Sure, they were weird and they made strange decisions and stupid mistakes, but she knew they loved her. She thought of her dad's awful jokes and of her mama reading her story after story at bedtime when she was little. Maybe her parents were different from other kids' parents, but they had always taken care of her basic needs and had always made her feel loved and safe. Millie wanted to be safe. Millie, at least come downstairs and say hello. Grandpa called up to the stairs. It was Christmas Eve, and Grandpa had been blasting Christmas music all day long, singing Silver Bells and White Christmas and other of Millie's least favorite off key in the kitchen while he baked the ham and decorated the cookies. From the level of noise downstairs, Millie assumed that her aunt and uncle and cousins had arrived. This fact did not fill her with joy. Nothing did. Millie reluctantly dragged herself downstairs. They were gathered around an antique glass punch bowl that Grandpa had dug out from who knows where in this household stuff. They were wearing Christmas sweaters, all of them, even her annoying little cousins. Aunt Sherry had on some wearable abomination with a reindeer that had a light up nose. Uncle Rob, her dad's goofy brother, wore a red sweater and candy canes on it. And Cameron and Hayden were matching elf sweaters. It was also hideous that Millie feared her eyes would bleed. Merry Christmas! Aunt Sherry greeted her, opening her arms for a hug. Millie did not move toward her. Hello, she said, her voice dripping icicles. After a funeral, Millie, Uncle Rob said, nodding toward her head to toe black and purple clothing. He always had this shirt and apparently never stopped finding it hilarious. I wish. Millie said, better to be an honest, sad individual than a fake happy one. And she would certainly prefer funeral organ music to be forced to listen to Winter Wonderland again. Millie isn't celebrating Christmas this year, Grandpa said, but at least she agreed to grace us with her presence. How can you not want to celebrate Christmas? Hayden said, looking up at Millie with big, innocent blue eyes. Christmas is awesome. He had a little lisp that came out when he said Christmas and awesome, which Millie supposed some people would find cute. And parents are awesome, Cameron said, pumping his fist in excitement. Both kids were so hyper it was like their parents had poured them full of black coffee. Millie wondered if there had been a time when she got this excited over a holiday or whether she had always known better. Our culture is already too materialistic, Millie said. Why do you want more stuff? Her aunt and uncle and cousins all looked uncomfortable. Good. Somebody in his family needs to tell the truth. Sherry plastered a smile on her face. Millie, why don't you at least have a cup of eggnog? Drinking eggnog is like drinking a plague. Millie said, "Really, how much of the disgusting beverage became a part of any tradition celebration? Eggnog and fruitcake both seem more like they should be a part of a punishment rather than a celebration." "What plan?" Hayden asked. "That's the gross, slimy stuff that's in your throat and nose when you have a cold," Aunt Sherry said. Cameron raised his cup. "Yum, eggnog," he said, then took a big, showy drink that left an eggy mustache on his upper lip. Millie didn't take it. She had to get out of here. "I'm going for a walk," she said. "Can we come too?" Hayden asked. "No," Millie said. "I need to be alone." "Well, don't stray too far away," Grandpa said. "We're eating dinner in an hour." As Millie headed out the door, Grandpa called for her to remember her coat, but she ignored him. All the houses in the neighborhood had extra cars in their driveways, no doubt because of visiting family members celebrating the holiday. All these people acting the same, doing the same thing, presents, eggnog, and hypocrisy. Well, Millie was different and she wasn't going to participate. Hypocrisy, she thought again, and this time the word stung her. Dylan had said that she was a hypocrite because she judged Brooke by her appearance, but boys, even boys who seemed cool like Dylan, were fooled by appearances. If a conventional pretty blonde girl paid any attention to him, they'd think she was a saint and genius rolled into one. No way was Millie a hypocrite. She was a truth teller, and if some people couldn't handle the truth, that was their problem. After one lap around the block, she was feeling really pretty cold, but there was no way she was going back in the house yet. An idea popped to her head. Grandpa's workshop had a low space heater he always kept running. It could keep her toasty warm while she waited at the party. He was too busy hosting his lame little holiday gathering to go into his workshop. It was a perfect place to hide. Grandpa keep Grandpa kept the key under a flower pot beside the workshop door. Millie found it, opened the door, and pulled the chain on the bar light bulb that hid the light. Windowless space. She closed the door behind her and looked around. The space was even more crammed with stuff than it had been the last time she was there. Grandpa really must have been hitting the yard sales, flea markets, and savage yards. Neat his workbench was a rusty antique bicycle, the kind with a giant front wheel and a tiny black back one. There are lots of old mechanical toys too. A metal bank with a clown that flipped coins into its mouth. A giant box that startled her when the jester doll jumped out, even though she knew what could happen once she started turning the crank. There's even one of those horrible grinning monkey dolls that clang cymbals together. Why did Grandpa want all this stuff, and what did he plan to do with it? Repair it and then use it to clear the house some more, she guessed. The strangest item among many was tucked in one corner of the workshop. It was some kind of mechanical bear with a bow tie, top hat, and creepy blank grin. It looked like it once been white and pink, but years of neglect had left it dingy gray. It was big, big enough for a person to climb into its body cavity, like in those science fiction movies where people drove giant robots. Those hinges in its limb made it look as if its parts had once moved. It must have been a figure from one of those old kids' attractions that feature creepy looking animatronics. Why had little kids ever liked things that were nightmare inducing? From outside the workshop, Millie heard laughter and yelling. Hayden and Cameron playing in the backyard. She hadn't thought to lock the workshop door from the inside. What if they tried to come in? She couldn't let them find her. They'd go tell the adults, and then she'd be dragged back into the house and sentenced to a mandatory celebration. Millie found herself staring at the old animatronic bear, not just as a curiosity now, but as a potential solution to her problem. She opened the door to the mechanical bear's body cavity, crawled inside, and shut the door behind her. Darkness enveloped her. It was so much better than those annoying twinkling lights and garnish. Bright Christmas sweaters. This was perfect. No one would find her here. She could go back to the house after she heard Uncle Rob and Aunt Sherry's car pulling out of the driveway. So, what if she missed Skyping with her parents? It served them right for being so far away from her on Christmas. Kids, for kids, time for Christmas dinner. Grandpa called out to the back door. Millie, you come in too if you can hear me. Cameron and Hayden came running in, their cheeks pink from the chilly air. It smells great in here, Cameron said. Well, that's because I cooked you a feast, Grandpa said. Ham and sweet potatoes and rolls and your mom's green bean casserole. Your boys didn't happen to see Millie while you were out there, did you? Nope, didn't see her, Hayden said. Grandpa, why is she so weird? Grandpa chuckled. She's 14. You'll be weird when you're 14 too. Now go wash your hands before we sit down to eat. At the table, Grandpa carved a big, sticky, beautiful ham. I glazed this thing with Coca-Cola, he said. Found the recipe on the internet. I've been looking up a lot of recipes since Millie moved in. Most of them are vegetarian, so she won't starve herself to death. I bought this weird fake turkey loaf thing for her at the grocery store. When she gets back, she can have it with the green bean casserole and the sweet potatoes. I keep feeling like we ought to go out and look for her, Sherry said. Oh, she'll show up when she gets hungry or when she feels like she's made her point, Grandpa said. She and that cat of hers aren't that different. She's just at that age, you know. Now, speaking of hungry, who wants some ham? I don't have a sword like a Saudi Arabian executioner, silly Millie, the voice said. But I do have a sharp sheet of metal I could pass through the chamber. It could pass at any level of your throat, or it could hit you lower and bisect you. And bisection is sure a way to go, too. Either way, the job will get you done. I think it will be smooth like Madame Guillotine instead of a slow, dull hacking like Mary, Queen of Scots, experienced. But I'm not the 100% sure. This will be my first attempt at decapitation. Yours too, but it will also be your last. As the voice laughed at Lay's witticism, Millie pushed on the walls of the chamber that trapped her. They didn't budge, but when she saw a tiny crack of shining through the side of the door, maybe she could slip something, a tool of some sort, into that crack. She could somehow pry the door open, but what she could use as a tool. She took a mental survey of her jewelry. Her earrings were too small and breakable, and her necklace was an unhelpful string of jet beads. But there was the silver cuff bracelet on her wrist. She pulled it off and pushed and bent it until it was nearly ruler straight. The end seemed like the right size to slip into the crack into the floor, but she was too afraid to test it too worried that her capture would notice. Millie, the voice said, are you still with me? A decision must be made. Millie thought if she lowered her head and curled up into a little ball when the blade shot through, it would miss her. She'd have to be quick though and make sure she got her whole head out of the way, or else she'll get scalped. If the blade came through lower to bisect her, she'd really have to fly out in the bottom of the small space. Is there any chance you could just let me go? She asked. Anything I could give in exchange for my life? Lamb chop, there's nothing I want you from except your life. Millie took a deep breath. Okay, then decapitation it is. Really? The voice sounded tremendously pleased. Good choice. It's a classic. I promise you won't be disappointed. The rumbling laugh. You won't be disappointed because you'll be dead. Millie felt more tears spring to her eyes. She had to be strong, but you could still cry and be strong at the same time. Tell me when are you going to do it, okay? Just don't spring it on me. Fair enough, I suppose. It's not like you're going to go anywhere. Give me a few minutes to get ready. You know what they say. Prior preparation prevents poor performance. The chamber shook and rattled when the animatronic's eyes rolled back outward, away from the chamber. Millie waited, her heart pounding, that she never wished for death. No matter how hard life could be, how depressing or disappointing, she wanted to live. If nothing else, she wanted the chance to apologize to Dylan for what she said about Brooke and to ask if they could be friends again. She curled into it as tiny as a ball as she could, tucking her head under her arms. She hoped harder than she could ever hope anything she had low enough to miss the blade. Millicent Fitzsimmons, you're hereby sentenced to die for crimes against humanity. Wait, Millie said. What does that mean? Crimes of humanity. You, that voice said, you have been rude and quick to anger. You have rushed to the judgment of others. You have been insufficiently grateful to those who have shown you nothing but love and kindness. The voice was right. Different in distances of her own rudeness and interrogate played her in her head like scenes from a movie she didn't want to see. Guilty as charged, Millie said, but what are those crimes I have to die for? Those are crimes that everybody's guilty of doing from time to time. True, the voice said. That's why they're crimes of humanity. But if there's something all humans are guilty of, then why do I have to die for them? The voice didn't answer, and Millie felt a small tingle of hope. Maybe she wouldn't have to take her chances by clearing up on the floor of the cavity. Maybe she could talk herself out of this. Because, the voice said, you're the one who crawled into my belly. Whimpering, Millie made herself as small as she possibly could in the bottom of the cavity. If she got out, she was going to make it a point to be nicer to Grandpa. He really had begun to her, taking her in and putting up with her moods and teaching herself how to cook all those vegetarian recipes. In the spirit of the French Revelation, the voice said, I will now do a countdown in French before releasing the blade. Quick as a shot, the blade sliced through the chamber. Grandpa boiled a pot of sugar cookies and set them out on the coffee table. I'll be right back with the hot chocolate, he said in the kitchen. He finally broke down and called Millie's cell number. Her phone rang from the pocket of her jacket that was hanging in the coat rack in the hall. Oh well, she would have come back when she felt like she proved her point. He hated to think of her being outside without a jacket, though. It was pretty chilly out there. Grandpa poured 5 cups of hot chocolate and topped them off with a gorgeous handful of mini marshmallows. He carried the steaming cups and a tray into the living room. Who's ready for presents? He called. I am, Cameron shouted. I am, Hayden shouted even louder. Do you think we should wait for Millie? Sherry asked. She's not celebrating Christmas, remember? Rob said. Why should we wait for her if she's going to be a brat? Grandpa didn't like the word brat being used to describe Millie. She wasn't a bad kid, she was just difficult at an age. She could come around. He crouched under the Christmas tree and arranged all her presents in a big pile so they'd be there for her when she came back. Now, that ending was left ambiguous, but over time, if you watch my reactions to multiple different videos of the song, there is one exception though. That will be the one from Zoomspin. And I've been thinking, let's try to think logically here. Since Funtime Freddy, yes, that's the robot who is in Count the Ways. He has been rusting from inside and outside, mostly on the inside. And by the way, since he is very rusty on the inside, the blade would be very rusty as well, and it would probably not work as much as it would. And plus, we have to think about the differences between the thickness of the blade, which is like very thin, and the thickness of his chest cavity, and like the yeah, like the door and the main putty. Like they are very, very thick metal titanium plates that he could open. And I was thinking that when the blade did come in, it was badly dented and didn't even come through. Although people have made Funtime Freddy with chest cavities with different slots in the chest. But I was thinking that Funtime Freddy in here does look exactly how he was in the games. And since that ending was ambiguous, my choice for the ambiguous ending is that she lives. Of course, all right. It's up to the people's choices on if she lives or if she dies. I've seen way too many people saying that, oh, she dies, so they can add in more lore or something. I don't know, but they only use that once and then jump straight back to the animatronics or the Afghans and nothing else. So, yeah, my choice for the ambiguous ending is that she lives.